My name's Adam Bearne. I'm a volunteer firefighter and emergency medical technician with the Tacoma Park Volunteer Fire Department. So when I first came to America from Scotland about 6 years ago, I'd always been interested in firefighting and emergency management and stuff like that, but I'm a journalist by trade, my day job. But when I moved here to Tacoma Park, I walked past the firehouse here and I saw above the door there, Tacoma Park Volunteer Fire Department. I thought, volunteer fire department, how does that work? I had no idea that you could be a volunteer firefighter. So I knocked on the door and I talked to the president of the department here, and 20 minutes later I left having signed all the forms to join, and I was well on my way. So being a volunteer is great for me. I always say that it's I'll start again. Being a volunteer is great for me. I always say that it's the best hobby in the world. You know, I still can't believe that someone just lets me turn up here, after a bit of training, of course, and jump on this fire engine or the ambulance. So that's incredible. You know, I've always been interested in volunteering, serving other people in my community, and I think there's probably no greater way than potentially saving someone's life, be it from a medical emergency or from a house fire or something. So that's definitely the big plus for volunteering for me. The only downside with volunteering is, of course, I'm not here as much as our career firefighters who are assigned to the station. So sometimes I hear them telling a story about a great fire that they went to, and of course I was stuck at work, so I missed out, and sometimes that's a little frustrating. Well, when the Tacoma Park Volunteer Fire Department started in the late 1880s, I imagine it was probably similar, because people there, they didn't have any fire apparatus, they didn't have any knowledge or experience of firefighting, but they decided to come together, acquire a piece of fire apparatus, and really learn how to be firefighters so that they could serve their community. I imagine in Tanzania, maybe where resources are a little scarcer, it's obviously maybe more difficult to acquire the fire apparatus, but I know that some departments in the US and elsewhere will donate older fire equipment which they're retiring to developing countries. So perhaps that would be one way of people in Tanzania and across Africa acquiring fire equipment. Then, of course, you have the internet, which is a fantastic resource. I mean, of course, we have lots of great drills here. We have a whole training academy where we go to learn how to be firefighters. But we really learn a lot of things online. We look at other departments across America, in other countries, to see what they're doing and to learn from them. So perhaps that's one thing that people in Tanzania could do. Well, obviously, in the case of a big fire, that's obviously quite a serious situation. And if you don't have the training, we would never recommend anyone try and go into that building to help. For someone with no training, the best thing that you can do is help clear the area, making sure that it's clear for firefighters who do arrive, and also stopping people from maybe re-entering the building. That's a problem that we encounter sometimes with people trying to go back in to save belongings, or perhaps people, family members, etc., who are trapped inside. That's obviously not a great thing to do. So if you can keep people outside, that's the best thing. That's the best thing possible. And then obviously knowing how to contact the emergency services, knowing how to get them to the scene, and keeping that scene clear for them is the best thing you can do. In the case of a smaller fire, you know, fire extinguishers can be great, you know, throwing a bucket of water on something, you know, as long as it's not burning oil or something, that can also be good. But you have to be very careful that that doesn't get out of hand, and often contacting the fire department first before you try and tackle the fire yourself is the best option, so that they're already coming in case you can't put the fire out. Well, I would never advise anybody to go into a burning building without the proper training and the safety equipment that we have. You know, obviously we have our turnout gear, which protects us from the heat. We have our breathing apparatus, which protects us from the smoke. And without that, especially nowadays, these fires are very dangerous and get very deadly very quickly. Now, obviously, we're trained to throw ladders to windows to help people who might be trapped up there. You know, we can do it very quickly, but there's nothing to say that if there wasn't a ladder or something nearby and you could throw it up to a window where someone is trapped, you know, that might be a good thing to do. But going inside the building without any experiences is definitely a no-go for us. Well, I understand there's obviously cultural differences between Scotland, where I'm from, here in America, and Tanzania, and different countries across Africa. But I would say that fire safety is probably everybody's responsibility, you know, and something that we always encourage just regular families to do here, mums, dads, grandparents, is come up with a fire escape plan, so that if there was a fire to break out in the home, the people, and especially the children, if they can't get in contact with the adults, know how to get out of the home. And that's something that we hope people would practice once or twice a year. So even despite cultural differences, perhaps that's something that women in Tanzania could learn, could do with their children, learning and practicing with the children what to do in the event of a fire, teaching them to crawl low on the floor to get beneath the smoke, having them point out different ways of getting out of the house so that they know, even if mum's not around, even if dad's not around, if there's a fire, that they know how to escape and how to get outside safely. Well, for that reason, children are naturally inquisitive. Maybe teaching them about how to use a fire extinguisher at an early age is not a great idea. But practicing a fire escape plan, if that's something you teach them, hey, if they take the initiative to pretend there's a fire in the house and pretend that they have to crawl low under the smoke and pretend like maybe they have to exit through a window on the ground floor or something like that, that's absolutely fine if they want to play, so that, if in the unfortunate case that there was a fire in their home, they would be ready, they would have practiced. So I don't think there's any age which is too young to learn fire escape planning at home. Well, thinking about probably the longer response times that the fire department and the emergency medical services have in Tanzania, I would say that learning good first aid is probably vital. You could learn, say, if someone had a life-threatening bleed, how do you stop that bleed? Because by the time an ambulance turns up, perhaps it would be too late if you hadn't done anything. So if you learn basic first aid, you would learn how to stop that bleed, or you would learn how to help someone who's having trouble breathing or something like that, until the ambulance can arrive to provide more professional help.